is turning to come to you. There's no reason to hide. 3, 2, 1. We're live. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. We are going to talk about something interesting today. We will be talking about Web3, and a huge welcome to Jenil. Welcome back to the channel. Jenil, how are you?
Fantastic. How are you?
I'm very good as well. Hold on. Let me see if everything is okay. Chat,
If they can hear
welcome.
us.
Yes, let me know if we are audible, if we are visible, if everything's looking good. A quick hello, quick like the stream, and we shall get started. All right. Wait, I think the is the stream on a lag? Is there a lag, chat?
Let me check.
Welcome. Lavina, Aryan, Manan Goel, philosophical gamer. Okay, welcome. All right. I think everything is good. Yeah, everything is good. All right, General, we are on.
Awesome. Thank you for having me, Sid.
Dude, always a pleasure, man. Always a pleasure to have you on the channel. We did 3 streams on coding.
Yes, we
It's
did.
almost a year ago, and
Yeah.
that was us trying to understand Web 2, and here we are.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how much things have changed, but also like how little things have changed. We're still in the same position. I'm sitting where I was. We're still working on coding. Um, and the channel now has 40K, even 50K.
Yes,
And it
you
has 1
crossed.
million views. So
Yes.
congrats.
Thank you, brother. So tell me, what have you been up to? I hear that you've done some incredible stuff in the last few months.
Yeah.
Update us all.
Yeah, so in about, I think, uh, November, December, even a little bit before that, we were working on like a few projects,
Hmm.
and things weren't working out as we anticipated they would. So in college, I used to have a job as a research assistant where I studied Ethereum. So I knew that that was something I was good with, or at least something that I could build a product out of. So we
Mm.
started thinking, who should we build for? What should we build? What's something that's interesting? So at that time, we started to see that a lot of communities or Discord communities were taking off, and we started to see DAOs form. And we'll go into what DAOs are, but DAOs are essentially these organizations on Ethereum or on a blockchain. And we started to see, okay, if we build a platform for creators that can launch their own DAO and turn their Discord into a DAO, and if
Mm.
they can entirely operate on a blockchain, what does that infrastructure look like? So we decided to build like the most necessary core infrastructure for operating a DAO in a really simple way where you just have to fill out a beautiful form and it just works like how any payments platform would work like.
Damn. This
Um,
was on Discord.
this was on Discord, and we ended up building like a really like skeletal version of that, and we went live in about, I think, December 4th, which was my birthday. And we tried to workshop this product with like a few people. And the next day I woke up and we had about 400 transactions,
Wow.
and just like a lot of like activity around it. It was free, so we still couldn't like extrapolate something useful out of it, but it was still like validating for me to like see if there was something in it.
Right.
So cut to like, I think, February, March, where I think NFTs and just this overall space of Web3 or crypto started to take off. There were people that, mainstream people that were starting to like adopt this form of product. So I
Mm.
think that was like almost perfect timing for us to get that visibility.
Right.
And in March, we ended up raising around, we ended up raising $2.65 million. And we then
Superb.
like grew our team from 2 people to now we are a team of, I think, 11 or 13 people. And
This is in the Coinwise community.
in the Coinwise community, it's a product called Coinwise.
Okay.
We've been working on it for about a year now, a little over a year, and things have been good. Yeah,
Amazing, dude. Amazing. So what let's start off right at the beginning. I don't
hmm
know how many people in the chat know about Web3, who understand Web3, but
sure.
so I personally don't really. I think I have a rough idea on the concept behind it. I think it is decentralization.
Yes.
The idea with
Hmm.
Web 2 being that everything is routed through the centralized gateways, and Web 3 kind of avoids that.
Right.
But to frame it, what is Web 3?
Yeah. So if you just take a step back, I think Web one was sort of the information age, where we saw Yahoo, we saw Google, we saw internet as an opportunity for people to create some kind of, either there were marketplaces popping up back in the 90s. I think it was categorized as a space and time where information became readily available over the internet to lots and lots of people. And then Web 2 came along with Facebook and WhatsApp and other social networking platforms, where it wasn't just read, but it was read plus write,
Mm,
where you are now able to engage with people, you're now able to communicate with people. Then we started to see an evolution of that with Patreon, with Gumroad, with different platforms where a lot of the relationships with people, even though like we may not be really close, but we can still have these really loosely held relationships with people
right.
and engage with them in still like really meaningful ways. So that was Web 2. And then Web 3 sort of added another layer, which was read plus write plus own, where now you can own stuff and you can have ownership over information, or you can now uniquely identify information in like really meaningful ways. And like you said, it's decentralizes power. The way my
Mm,
professor put it is Web3 is all about power and self-sovereignty. So to put it in very simple ways, tech services can now be democratized. And instead of one server or one like single point of entry that manages a set of data or a set of media, can be managed by multiple servers and multiple computers all around the world.
right.
Uh,
Let's just pause there 1 second.
sure.
Uh, what you said was beautiful. Read, Web 1, gain information.
Right.
Web 2, read and write. So gain information and engage.
Hmm.
Web 3, read, write, and own.
Right.
So if I am reading on Twitter, I'm writing on Twitter, but then my tweets are, as of today, they are still not products that I can sell, but Web3 enables me to do that.
Right.
Hmm.
It's what people call the financialization of everything. And
Hmm.
it just makes things very explicit that now things are financialized, and there's like a verifiable point or verifiable way you can point to this, that okay, I own this tweet, or I own this image, or I
Hmm.
own this piece of code, or I own this piece of data on chain,
Hmm.
which can now be exchanged peer to peer between two people for a particular value or for free. But it is now in like a really decentralized database where everybody can see, okay, this is how information is data is being shared, and this is how value is being attributed to those pieces of data.
Correct. Now, somebody on chat has just said something very interesting. Jayesh Anil, from a
Mhm.
developer point of view, I think Web 3.0 is just Web 2.5. As
Okay,
everything being said as decentralized is not completely decentralized.
sure. Yeah, so there's this really interesting phenomena within developers or within people that build products. It's called progressive decentralization. And
Mm-hmm.
what progressive decentralization means is just like how nature operates. You start with something very centralized, or how like biological species operate. You start with like living with your parents, and then you slowly start to become more and more independent. And then you start to become, your family becomes a bit more decentralized, but everything starts in a very centralized way. Even if, when you start your own community or your own podcast or YouTube channel, it's a group of people, it's a more like networked a group of people,
Sure.
and then it slowly starts to get more and more decentralized as you go. It's not decentralized from day one. And even societies, if you look at history, when you used to live in like villages and in like prehistoric times,
Like a joint
every
family or a tribe.
exactly,
Mm.
tribe was the unit of power, and everybody was connected to everybody, everybody knew everybody. And then we came into urban civilizations where people are living in these beautiful concrete buildings, and there's like malls and theaters where people kind of know each other but not really. But what
Mm.
was interesting with Web 2 was there was services like YouTube that
Damn.
connected people in ways where you didn't quite have to, I don't fully have to know you as a person, but I can still interact with you. But
Mm.
what Web3 is saying is both of us can completely be anonymous, because we can now rely on mechanisms that are written by code or cryptography or computer science that can verify and that can ensure that we can exchange any kind of value in ways where we don't really have to fully know each other,
Mm.
which was really fascinating to me.
What is really interesting is that the reason that the tribe was the unit of communication
Right,
or society was trust.
right.
So, if you think about it, in a world where resources are limited,
Hmm.
everything is about the production, finding, and exchange of resources.
Right,
Now, what those resources are keeps changing as we evolve.
right.
But our relationship with resources has remained the same, that we want it, we
Exactly.
hoard it, and we want to give it to people that we love and trust.
Right, exactly.
Now, how trust has evolved is super fascinating
Hmm.
because earlier on, you can only trust people that you can see
Right.
and physically if they are present, which
Hmm.
is also why you would tend to trust people who look like you, who talk like you, who dress
Right,
like you.
right.
Because, somebody from another
Yeah,
tribe might just take away your resources and go away and then you'll die.
right.
So
Interesting.
what Web3 is doing, if I'm hearing you correctly, is
Hmm.
it is sort of outsourcing the decision making of trust to an algorithm.
Right. Correct. It's like a
Mm.
beautiful code that is great at identity matching, where it shows you exactly what you're looking for. And what I really liked about this was what you talked about resources. Like a good example of this is could be like the classic example of Hilton versus Airbnb. What
Mm.
Hilton does is Hilton has lots and lots of like motels and hotels all across the world. They hire services, they hire staff, they train them, but it's still like an economics of scarcity where they're still like trying to maintain this set of standard across all these like nodes or hotels. But what Airbnb did was went like a completely decentralized way where uh, they just ended up becoming, instead of a services business, into like a software business where trust was like almost decentralized, where you are now trusting people in places where you don't even know them. And now it's like from scarcity, it's like an economics of abundance.
And so this is not a new concept.
Right.
Referrals have always existed.
Mhm.
So even in the tribal times,
Right.
say if one tribe wanted their daughter to marry another tribe's son, they
Right.
would still need somebody to refer or vouch for them.
Right.
So there would be an uncle or an aunt who would be like, no, that family is good. I can vouch for
Right.
them. I know them. And so there is transferred trust,
Right.
right? So if I come across some random person, I won't trust that person. But then if I see you talking to them,
Hmm.
in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I trust Jenil.
Hmm.
Jenil seems to trust this guy. So
Right.
therefore, I can trust this guy.
Right.
And this is an old thing. Like advertisements use this all the time. Like Shah Rukh
Right.
Khan drinking a particular brand of cold drink
Right.
means that you can trust that cold drink because you trust Shah Rukh Khan.
Right. Even like I know, like in early 60s, a lot of cigarette companies used to have young people smoking them because it sort of communicated that okay, I can trust them, and it sort of matches with that, and that really took off.
Correct.
So it totally transfers.
And now in this case, when you talk of Airbnb, Airbnb has
Hmm.
actually done that, right? Like they've
Right.
algorithmized trust.
Right.
I have gone and stayed in an Airbnb in an island in Croatia,
Right.
which was, completely cut off from everywhere. There was just one
Hmm.
bungalow on top of a mountain and nobody around for miles. And to think
Right.
that I would go and stay there,
Yeah.
having no idea who the owner is, just because
Exactly.
Airbnb has vouched for it,
Right.
which is incredible. Like 50 years ago, this would have been unheard of.
Right. And even if to take this further, in this case, you're sort of living under the guidelines of Airbnb's criteria, and they have sort of soft structures where they can impose their will onto how this software operates, or list or delist people.
Right.
So what services on Web3 are doing is you don't actually trust like singular entities like Airbnb or even companies. You end up trusting like a group of people or a community. So if like let's say Airbnb itself was fragmented into 100 pieces, and if those 100 pieces were owned by 100 different people around the world, and you could have control over if that 100 becomes 200 or if that 100 becomes 99, I
Mm.
think that's what Web3 brings into picture, where you now have ownership over Airbnb, where you can dictate some of the bylaws of how like a lot of these mechanisms evolve or how Airbnb could evolve.
Mm. So I can immediately think of two problem statements,
Right.
right? Number one is accountability.
Hmm.
In terms of if Airbnb is responsible for my house
Right.
or my safety, then
Hmm.
that is a point of accountability. I know that, that is where the buck stops.
Hmm.
Now, in a world where Web3 is, in a world of Web3 where I'm booking a hotel or if I'm booking a stay through Web3, who is accountable for my safety?
Right. So uh, it sort of evolves in ways where there's like a core structure or a core group of people and there's levels to it. So there's a beautiful model called the orbit model, which defines like any I guess Web3 organization in ways where it's divided into like almost circular, almost like an onion
Mm,
layers. And then there's the core layer, which is sort of the people that have the most amount of ownership, or I guess the power to like, or authority to like make a change or govern where this goes. And then
mm,
it sort of trickles down to people that are loosely related to it, that are just like by staying there or by like being like a loyal customer, things like that.
mm,
So if you end up like staying, and if there's something that maybe you're trying to communicate to, you directly go to like the core community, and they can like maybe support you, or people that are like the largest owners of that like
mm,
organization. So Ethereum is a biggest example of an organization that is fully decentralized. And if we have issues, let's say I as a developer, I have an issue with developing on Ethereum, I can actually go to like a open like forum that Ethereum has, and I can ask a question, and anybody in the community would be like more than happy, or even like verified people. So you just simply give status to people that okay, hey, like you're now a contributor
mm.
to this organization, and then you can sort of help, and that like also increases like the
Yeah.
amount of help you can do.
What is fascinating to me is that this is how evolution of a tribe also happened.
Right.
Before all these governments and states were just tribes, which were equivalent to Discord communities of today.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the same problems happened there also about trust and how do you verify somebody and all of that.
Right.
So I immediately start wondering if are we seeing, have we come full circle? And are we now seeing the new level of tribes forming?
I think like this idea always gets me, because we grew up like reading these books in science fiction about collective consciousness, and
Mm,
that's the ultimate end of the circle, where the only way to propagate human species forward, we need to elevate consciousness.
mm,
And the only unit of power, or what we call social power, is the most strongest force that can come forth to singularity, or any kind of like collective effort is super powerful,
right,
even in like uh, really primitive communities or
right.
tribes. I think that's like really powerful. So I think like we've sort of come full circle, where we had historic civilizations where everybody was really connected. Then we have pre-modern societies where everybody was connected through social media. And
Mm,
now in the pre-modern state, which is almost like a total state, but the only
mm,
difference is power. Before we were obeying power with physical compliance, uh, and with minimal maybe mental compliance if you add taxation. But power was complied with like only physical compliance. In this like pre-modern state, power must not be just obeyed, it must be loved,
mm.
where you're emotionally connected to power. And with like a virtual reality and things like progressing forward, I think it's going to be like a really dystopian-esque time.
Let's explore this a little bit deeper.
Sure.
How is, do you think that Web3 is inevitable?
I think it's right now. I think Web3, or what people call metaverse, is like this switch in time where our digital lives become more important than the physical lives.
Mm,
So even right now, we're talking to each other on our computers. The average screen time for any individual is going up.
yeah,
The full-time career, that if I'm building a career on, is probably going to be on the internet. If it's
yeah.
maybe, even if it's not software, it's probably going to be built on the internet if I'm like, let's say, working remotely or somewhere. So a lot of our lives are already online on our computers in this digital world.
Right.
Even what we own, things that we find really, really valuable, like relationships or even items, they're all now digital. Our status, our power, or our social capital, our economic capital is all like money is now digital. Uh, all of it is on like
Yeah.
in this world. So I think that's it's we're already there.
Yeah. If everything has gone digital, then
Right.
what is the difference between Web 2 and Web 3 in the currently?
Right. So there's really like fascinating thing happened in 2020 or 2019 was when people started to attribute I guess owning things like tweets or images,
Mm,
and then we started seeing people own NFTs and experiment with it. It slowly like spiraled down into things that aren't as important, and it was like a speculation game. But we can talk about that later. But what was interesting was the key difference between Web3 was being able to have like some level of ownership.
mm,
So there were artists or people that had on-chain royalties, where if like let's say a song was released, you can have, if you supported that song early on, you can have perpetual royalties on chain. I think this idea that we can have sort of transparent verifiable systems, and
mm,
you can create like let's say systems from scratch, like it could be Airbnb, it could be like social platforms from scratch. What does a Web3 Twitter look like, or a Web3 Instagram look like? I think NFTs and DAOs, or even cryptocurrencies, where we're building the financial system from almost the ground up and
right.
rethinking ways where what does economics look like. I think that's the shift between Web 2 and Web 3, is this
Right.
core idea of like self sovereignty, which is freedom,
Yeah.
because it's decentralization, and power, which is money. Um,
I'm thinking of something very on a tangent. Chat, how old are you guys? Just so that I get an idea. How old is everybody listening to this conversation right now? Uh, because I want to know if if there is anybody below 20 or if there's anybody above 40, because there are people who are above 40, 45, 50 who have been established and they're working
mhm,
in a particular field, in a particular mindset.
right,
They might think that I don't really need to learn all this,
right,
right? Because my earning is done. It's like my I'm set in my ways and this will not really affect me. Now every generation has thought of this when there has been a technology shift,
right.
but this seems different because of the rate at which technology is shifting now. I
Mhm,
don't think any generation can say that I don't have to learn this. Even if you're 50, even if you're 60,
right,
this might still affect you.
right,
You would still be alive for another 20, 30 years, and this might still affect you in a very deep personal way.
right. I think like it switches the gears where you will not have. If people think about this in the ways where, okay, I've earned X amount of money,
Mm,
and I'll probably make enough to like not have to worry about this technology at all, or maybe the cost of learning all of this is a bit too high, or it just feels like really gimmicky,
mm,
right? But what's going to happen is there's entire teams that are working on ways where instead of you having to earn for doing something, you will now get paid to do whatever
mm,
you're already doing. And
mm.
that's like the most like I guess both like powerful and scary thing that we've been seeing is, yeah, you get paid to like come and like throw a subscribe or a like. You get paid to like you know um, access any like social media platforms. I think like the next generation of gaming and social media is going to be where like people who are users, they get paid to like use it
Yeah,
because that's
engage.
growth for, right, engage with
Yeah,
them, because they're trying
incredible.
to optimize for attention. And what the next layer is they're trying to create like some kind of retention, or have them become like the owners of the game itself or the social platform itself.
Yeah,
So you almost get aligned with whatever the success or failure of it is.
yeah.
So whether you like it or not, I think at some point of time you'll probably get rewarded with it, or there's going to be ways where there's going to be a no option to like, let's say if you're calling somebody on Facebook, guess
Oof,
what, Facebook has already probably implemented a lot of this.
oof. Damn, this is going to be crazy because if you're going to get paid to play a
Right,
game,
Right.
or if you're going to get rewarded for watching somebody play a game,
Right.
and there'll be different levels of payment, sure, but
Right.
then I don't think our brain is wired to really differentiate then what is good for me and what is not, and then you will
Exactly.
keep on chasing, because even today, even when we are not getting paid, even this much amount of dopamine is enough for us to get us hooked.
Right.
And so if you're also adding payment on top of it, so okay, most people are below 25, most people are below 30 in my chat.
Okay.
Couple of people, one person about 30, one person 61. Wow, okay.
Hmm.
So that's interesting, Harish. Like, do you, when you're watching this conversation, do you feel like you can relate to this? Do you feel like this is important to you? Because that's the question that I'd ask. Like, my instinctive response is that it probably would be, because by the time in another 5 years, I think we will all be needing to talk in these terms, talk about
Yeah,
all of
and
this.
I think, I mean, it's not like it's gonna come for you like we're almost making it sound like some demon kind of thing, but you can probably you'll still be okay. Like if you go to like villages in India, or
Hmm.
if you go 100 kilometers anywhere, there's people that live in ways where in cities, like you'll just laugh, like, okay, nobody, it's like really primitive, right? And
Yeah.
lived like that their whole life, and they're still fine. So people like that will still continue to exist. It's not like everybody will be converted or everybody will have to interact with it.
Hmm.
There's going to be places where they'll still be primitive, but a majority of it will be
Yeah,
right.
because again, it's kind of like having a mobile phone.
Right.
Like 15 years ago, we could have thought that maybe it's a luxury, or 20
Right.
years ago, but today
Mhm.
it's not. In fact, uh, government papers and official documents require a phone number and a mobile number.
Right.
So these things can very quickly become an absolute necessity.
Right.
And a mobile number is still something that you can wrap your head around, because it
Right.
evolves slowly. But
Mhm.
having a MetaMask account number, for example, is not something that you can explain to somebody in 5 minutes.
Right.
I have heard an explanation around 3 times, and it still gets me a little bit. That how do you work it out in your head? So I feel like this particular shift might be a difficult one for most people on the planet. Like
Yeah.
how we say that somebody above 45, they have a boomer moment and all that. I feel like we are all going to have boomer moments with with Web3.
Yeah, definitely. I think like what a lot of these things, it might feel like it's difficult to like navigate through, let's say, MetaMask or wallets, but I think it's getting simpler and simpler, and
Mm,
in a like uh, really like fast pace that I even didn't think like it's gonna get this fast. There's wallets where you don't even know. It's almost like signing up for an email on Gmail. It's
mm,
very simple, but here, like if you have to use any Web3 application, it's no longer like signing in with your email. It's just connecting your wallet to it, which is sort of now become the universal thing. Is we're going like almost uh, we're getting rid of sign in, and we're using Ethereum to sign into any single application. So I
wow.
think in many ways it will make it really, really simple. And
Mm,
almost like if you're a creator, if you're like doing anything on the web, I think getting a wallet is almost like using an email account, but it's almost like it takes 5 minutes of your time. But once you do it, it's just like so much more simpler, where you don't have to handle
right,
Gmails.
right.
And yeah.
Somebody is asked about. I mean, this is kind of out there, but what would Web 4.0 look like? I think we are still trying to wrap our head around
Yeah,
3.0.
I mean, I feel like this decade is going to be a swing at decentralization, but what's next is maybe some iteration of like I said, power is going to be very emotional. So
Mm,
if you're in like some level of virtual environment where your mobile phone is now fully replaced with some like a headset, I know like Apple, I'm not fully sure. Like now we're in this territory of just purely fiction, but
mm,
Apple is working on this next update where they aim to like replace their headsets.
mm,
I mean, I think it's like a 180-degree some Apple view that's
mm.
gonna act as a mobile phone in the next 10 years, and it will fully replace iPhones.
Oh,
And I
so
feel like
you
if
just
once,
you just go around wearing that,
yeah, or it's almost like wearing these glasses that I do right now.
right?
Um, Maybe like a bit more stylish version of that, but I think like it's gonna get more and more immersive,
Mm,
where this much dopamine is probably not that enough,
yeah.
and there's going to be like stronger ways to interact with people that is kind of
Yeah.
normalized.
I read about how Apple is going more towards augmented reality than
Right,
virtual reality. And that makes a lot of sense from a Web3 perspective, because it's,
right,
if you're looking at immersive, but you still want to be in this world.
right.
Uh,
You can kind of ease yourself into it, but I
yeah.
think it's going to be like you already see this with gaming, where
Mm,
gaming took like a really, even with augmented reality, it almost feels like starkly real. But once you have VR and once you are in this environment where you can't differentiate, I think it's going to be like fascinating to see like what that world looks like,
yeah.
where coding is not on your keyboard. Coding is actually just you dragging and dropping,
Uh,
uh, like just using blocks in this virtual world, and that's what's making like a website looks like.
right.
um,
Right. You
so
can literally build a website.
exactly, exactly.
Wow. Okay, so it's almost like we've actually gone full circle, and like the primitive man has to build his own house,
Exactly.
we are
Yeah,
building a website with blocks of code.
yeah.
All right,
So
that's incredible.
yeah,
Jenil, what can we do right now, all of us listening on chat? What can I do to prepare for Web3? Like, what are the steps that I should take? What are the things that I should definitely know about?
yeah. So I would probably say like at least try to get a wallet,
Mm,
because that's like a really cool way to like figure out and um, like how digital currencies work.
mm,
You can get a MetaMask. It's fairly simple. It
mm.
walks you through like a really simple process. It's almost like signing up for a website. It's a browser extension, or you can get it on your mobile phone too.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a very first step to like understand what digital currencies look like. But if you want to really get your hands on, I think the best way to learn is by actually doing it. So try out like really simple like platforms like Uniswap, where you can buy or trade or any digital currency. I think
Mhm.
like there's other apps for that too. I think Uniswap is probably the most prominent one. You can try out like digital identity, which again costs no money. You can create your own like virtual identity that represents you. It's called proof of humanity,
What?
where you verify yourself, and the goal of that is that they're trying to do this like sort of universal basic income, where services and assets are now democratized to everybody, and you can almost understand what reputation systems and identity looks like in this like virtual world, and how fluid they are, because you can really have like multiple identities, and you can have like every single version of yourself
What?
extremely unique, right? So I think there's really interesting ways. I would probably like try to get a wallet, try to verify yourself, or check out proof of humanity. It's a really cool. It's an open source project. You can contribute to it. Um, you can check out Uniswap. Definitely check out Coinwise
Mm,
if you have a Discord, or even if not. I think like try to read or see like what other people have been doing in Web3. I think that itself will like, because Web3 is a category. It's almost like computer science. There's so many things within it.
mm.
So you probably like try to explore and see what makes sense to you, and and yeah, we can have
Amazing.
like a list of recommendations.
Amazing. Somebody was recommending that you start looking at OpenSea, or you start looking at
Yeah,
NFTs.
I think I didn't suggest OpenSea because OpenSea has a lot of things that just maybe distracts you from,
Mm,
like maybe start with something that is less noisy.
mm.
And OpenSea is like almost like you said in
Like
your one
a
of your episodes, it's like extremely, there's a lot of movement, and try with something that's comforting.
right.
So um, there's other platforms that you can try. I think like um, yeah, MetaMask is great. Rainbow Wallet is amazing. You can check
Mm.
out NFTs too. It's a pretty well-designed platform. If you're writing online, if you have a newsletter of yourself, check out Mirror or XYZ. It's like a Web3 version of Medium or Substack,
Wow.
um, which I highly, highly recommend. Um,
Mirror.xyz.
yes,
All right.
um, I think that's been the most exciting platform of 2021.
Mm.
And
Khushbu's
with the,
asked an interesting question, that with
yeah.
attention span of people reducing day by day, where are we headed with the boom of more immersive technologies? Hmm.
Oh, we're just getting started. I feel like Siddharth and a lot of other brilliant doctors that are working on neuroscience, gut health, eye health. everything that has to deal with hormones and
Mm.
dopamine and things like that, they're going to be very, very rich. So
Very busy. Let's
yeah,
say
they're going to be
busy.
very busy. Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, but that is a legitimate fear, Khushbu. I feel that the since we don't understand how the brain works, most people don't. We are rushing into this very blindly, but it's definitely important to have that conversation about as we immerse ourselves more and more in this world, we our brain can get confused with physical cues. So, if right now, how do you even know if you're hungry or thirsty, right? Like your brain has to listen to cues from your body. But then if you were in a battlefield, you wouldn't be able to hear those cues, right? If somebody's running after you, you're not going to suddenly stop and say that I'm hungry, I want to have I want to have lunch. You'll be running. So if you are in a super immersive game, that's what happens. You forget to eat, you don't drink water, and this is actually a real problem that gamers face. That they're gaming for 10 hours, 12 hours, and they forget to drink water, and they're actually ending up dehydrated. So nowadays, a lot of gamers keep that huge bottle of water that they can keep sipping from, because they realize that this is a problem. The problem with VR is that you don't even have access to all of that. You can't see anything, right? You are completely immersed in it, and so it's very, very easy to forget about very simple physical stuff. So that's a conversation that we definitely need to have.
yeah, I feel
I
like
don't
I
want to be
want
that
to.
rich.
No, I'm not saying rich, but maybe a bit more. Yeah, your time is going to be really valuable.
Yeah.
Uh, but I feel like it's really important for younger kids to like step away and
Mm.
just try to be in some natural environment. Sports really helps, like do whatever you like, but try to stay away from technology as much as you can.
Mm.
I know, like maybe try to limit your screen time less than 3 hours, but um, it'll only get immersive from here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because every single interaction that we have with each other,
yeah,
I can imagine a more immersive way of doing this.
right.
And
Yeah,
our brain just creates its own reality. So if you make it immersive enough, in fact, you don't even need to make it immersive. I remember when computers first started, getting into people's households,
right,
simple games like Contra and Dave were so
right,
immersive.
right. Yeah,
So
they were.
immersive is not a property of the software, it is actually a property of the brain.
Yeah, it's like it's just so new. It continues to like have like this norepinephrine hit. Like you just pay your attention to it, and I know like uh, a lot of younger kids around me, around my house. I used to
Mm.
ask them, and when I was younger, everybody used to play outside, and we used
Yeah.
to all play together. But now there's no kids outside. Everybody's on their
Wow.
phones, and even when they go outside, they're talking about like games and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was like we're already there. Yeah.
Yeah. So without painting too dystopian a picture, like I feel like
Right.
if we can somehow achieve the balance with physical exercise,
Right.
and focus on diet and nutrition, I feel that technology is incredible.
Right.
I am somebody who is very pro technology. Like I
Mhm.
would never wish for technology to stop
Yeah.
evolving. Like I
Agreed.
want it to go more and more.
Yep.
But what the problem is, technological advancement without corresponding awareness of what it is
Right.
doing.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. Like as I mean, if you're asking this question, you're probably very much aware of it. So you're probably in a good space. And I feel like with technology being a bit more like useful in the sense that now you can have like financial freedom and you can discover ways where you can at the convenience of just being at your home, you can build a career. I think that's really powerful. Before
Yeah.
you have to do like physical labor or even go to maybe offices are fun, but still this is like way more convenient than what we had imagined like even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. When we're talking of Web3,
Right.
what is the timeline that you have in your head? Like it's 2022 and
Yeah.
we are having this conversation today.
Yeah.
Suppose we have this in 2023.
Yeah.
What's the world like?
I feel like we're moving at warp speed.
Hmm.
I really believe that what Web3 did with like collective effort, where groups of people can get together and do something together, I feel like that's going to be the shift. And I feel like the next few years or even 1 year is going to be the year of DAOs,
Mm,
where group chats become way more powerful than you think they are. So I think it's the year of group chats where friends get together, they decide to on like specific goals, almost like composable communities where you work on a goal, you get together, and then you split up, almost like a movie, back up,
incredible.
and then you'd work on another goal,
Yeah.
and
Sort of like
collectively.
Ocean's 11.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's going to be tools that allow you to do these things in a much more efficient way, where it's like at a fraction of seconds these things happen, as opposed to like traditional government procedures.
Yeah.
And I think like discovering ways to, let's say, writing an article and selling that article as an NFT, and then every single co-author gets royalties perpetually who wrote that scientific paper. I think
Wow.
these kinds of systems will create economic freedom for people like that are that are doing research, that are gaming, because now you get paid to play games like Axie Infinity. I think, yeah, if you want to get started and if you're interested in games, go play Axie Infinity. It's a Web3 game, and you get paid in Axie
Yeah, I
for
think
playing the game.
somebody had mentioned it also. Axie Infinity in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think like gaming and collective effort, or Web3 social, is going to be the soundtrack of this next year. And when
Amazing.
next year, when we talk, I think we'll see a lot more games and fun things where people can almost create digital scarcity out of nothing, but in ways where you can almost like earn money. Like I know
Mm,
people that are getting paid in crypto for editing a video, for doing like these really soft contributions that in the real world
right.
would be really difficult to compensate for.
So one thing that comes to me is that as a society, we have to get
Mhm.
really good at dealing with FOMO,
Right,
because our brain is still wired to think that all resources are limited and scarce.
right,
But when we talk of digital commodities, it is close to infinite.
right.
Every tweet is a digital commodity.
Yep,
Everything is a digital commodity. We cannot go into Web3 with the same level of FOMO that we have in everything
right.
else.
It's actually the complete opposite. Like I said, study economics of abundance.
Mm,
The theories that you try to apply when you're building a product or building anything or understanding it, it doesn't apply in Web3 because it's no longer scarce. And it's almost, there is in Web2, there's a floor and there's a ceiling
mm,
of like what parameters there are. In Web3, there's no floor and there's no ceiling. And
mm.
these things are like really up to interpretation. So I think it's going
Incredible.
to be interesting.
So if there is no ceiling, then
Mhm.
how do you decide value?
Yeah, I think like value is something, whatever you attribute it to, it's like how much is this NFT worth, or how much like this X item is valuable. I
Mm,
think it's whatever we collectively like. I don't know. It's like a really interesting topic. Like, do you feel like social consensus attributes to truth and value? Because what we are getting at is value comes from maybe social consensus or what you're willing to pay
yeah,
for it,
yeah.
right?
So without social consensus, very few things have value.
Right,
Because I always look at the I alone on an island hypothesis.
right,
So whatever it is that you value,
yeah,
you take it to an island where you're alone
right,
and you're never getting out.
right,
Now, is it valuable?
right. Yeah,
So
I think
yeah,
it's like brilliant way of putting it, because these things are resources, and resources needs to be mapped to something.
yeah,
And if it doesn't map to something, then you're stuck with something that's invaluable.
correct.
So yeah,
So if you don't have a group of people who agree with you that your
right,
bright red Mercedes convertible is valuable,
correct.
then is it valuable?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of these social consensus comes out of different criterias, where some people consider, okay, does this have real world utility? Some people consider status. Oh, look how red and shiny this beautiful car
Right,
is.
right.
Some people look at it in the sense, okay, this could be something that could be worth maybe in the future, so let's value it really high right now. Or vice versa, let's just try to undervalue it because this doesn't clearly have any value at all, but it might be something that could be added with something else, almost like
Mm,
an ingredient, and it could form a really nice dish. So I
mm,
think like social consensus is a really nice way, but I still think like when we try to put social consensus into an algorithm, we end up creating like the same systems we used to, like democracy, oligarchy, monarchy,
Yeah.
and the same kind of history repeats itself again and again. So I feel
Mhm.
like we still need to like figure those things out. And a lot of the people that are building these are like as like 22, 25-year olds. So it's really difficult to understand governance mechanisms and social consensus.
Right.
But
Wow.
yeah,
I didn't realize that trying to solve or trying to understand Web3, we would actually have to solve one of the earliest of human problems, which is what form of society works best.
right, exactly.
And people have cycled through democracy, monarchy, oligarchy. So, they have tried out everything,
Right.
and we still haven't completely figured it out.
Yeah, I think like there was, I think Polybius or some like hippie philosopher from the Roman Empire somewhere said that we start with like, let's say, a regime, and
Mm.
every regime tries to process faith into the promise of sovereignty or
Yeah.
freedom, and every regime feels like really strong and until it's not. But it starts with a group of people that are what we call the rulers.
Mm.
Then it comes into this picture where the power is now distributed to the heir or the son or the daughter. And then people start to realize, wait a minute, this doesn't quite make sense. Everybody should have the get a say. So it
Right.
turns into a democracy. And then once it turns into a democracy, it then slowly starts moving towards an anarchy where it's the mob mindset, where whoever shouts the loudest gets heard. And I feel like we're in a state where, especially with what's going on right now in the world, it's slowly moving towards this anarchist situation where
Yeah.
whoever shouts the loudest gets heard. Um, but I still think with how Web3 systems are playing out, where countries are using these, digital currencies as a way to like almost defensibility, where these systems like nuclear weapons or
Yeah.
anything that has control over humanity is offense. But
Mm.
cryptography and computer science is the only thing that is defensive, but still has control over humanity. So I think that's a really
Brilliant.
powerful thing. Yeah.
Brilliant. I absolutely love that because we have to have some kind of counter or an
Right.
escape valve of power.
Right. Exactly.
When there is too
So
much power accumulated at the top, if you don't want it to become an autocracy, then there has to be some distribution, some flow of power back to the people. And
exactly.
crypto does that in a
Yep.
way.
Decentralized power.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic.
I'm
I'm
very
always an
optimistic. Yeah.
optimistic person. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't take too much to be optimistic. I feel like we still are in a state where we have the powers to like understand and pave the path where it doesn't go in the wrong direction. We just have to be really conscious of it, that are you building technology that further centralizes power or decentralizes power?
Hmm.
And if you can really like try to contribute in that in the minute, like in the smallest way possible, and not have like a zero sum mindset, and like almost lift people up, I
Yeah.
think that's like a really good way to like create net positive outcomes.
I wonder how many people in the chat are actually thinking of what would they do in Web3. I mean, that's
Oh
a
yeah.
interesting question, right? Because it's not just hypothetical.
Hmm.
We are all pretty soon going to be asked this question. That Abhi, now what? So I'm thinking
Right.
of doctors, right? I'm thinking of how would medicine be affected in Web3?
Yeah, I think like if we go with the principle or the idea of financialization of everything, we're already seeing like in this phase where if somebody's in the US and they still have a family doctor in India, they still communicate with them and they get these medicines. But what happens when sort of biology or I forgot, like bioconsumer goes
Mm.
everywhere. If everybody
Mm.
gets access to these, like especially with COVID, I think people started having these really composable kits that they started
Mm.
to order, that
Yeah.
they just have at home, and then I only call the doctor to get their diagnosis.
Yeah.
But the actual like really over-the-counter treatment was all like decentralized or democratized
Correct.
with everybody in their household. So I think
Correct.
that's a really good example of like maybe not decentralized but democratization of it, where the diagnosis or the, I guess, intellectual uh, thing, if it's not, as long as it doesn't need like a physical visit, even if it
Mm.
does, you can go to your nearest local center, was
Mm.
pretty like interesting. So maybe that's something that could be a step further um, in
Yeah.
medicine.
Yeah. So I feel that one way it can definitely go forward is when doctors can practice across the world.
Right.
So till now there is, so for example, if you've done computer engineering in India, then
Okay.
you can still go to the US and work.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
medicine is not like that yet.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that is one geographic boundary that I feel is going to get broken at some point,
Interesting. Yeah.
right? Because somebody from the US can get treated by somebody in India, and they can get paid in crypto,
Hmm.
because borders don't make sense anymore.
Right.
And as long as knowledge is verified,
Right.
that's all you
Yeah.
need.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, what you said really hit it in the nail. Like, what if credentials could transfer across
Hmm.
places, and if there was a way to, like, there was a universal system of verifying that this doctor has made like these many, um, this much practice, and the credentials are now like interoperable. So I think
Yeah.
that would be like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are organizations that do that.
Mhm.
There's an organization called Epic,
Right.
which is based in the US, and it basically does this verification job of
Right.
doctors from different countries who want to work in the US and the UK. But
Mhm.
the process is extremely slow and
Okay.
very, very buggy.
Right.
So definitely, in fact, the whole world of medicine has not really adapted technology in the way that other subjects have, other fields have.
Right.
So it's really ripe. It's ripe for disruption.
Yeah. I mean, I know at least like when you go to a doctor now, things are a lot less painful if something
Mm,
happens to you.
mm.
But it's still, yeah. I mean, you'd probably know it better than me, but um, yeah, maybe there's like something like a disruption that happens, and
Yeah,
um,
I
yeah.
think so. Lavina saying that being in finance really makes me think how taxation will change.
Oh, it will not. You're in for a ride. I think it gets worse from what we're seeing right now. But yeah, I mean, I think like now with India and China and a lot of these countries having their own regulated currency, I think things are going to be digital. So you don't have to like maybe like for me, I have to go like physically go to different places and figure out taxation, get the documents, and verify them, and then submit them. I think all of that will get digital because if you're using digital currencies, it makes sense to pay, or maybe even the tax gets automatically deducted if the
Mm,
system is already built out.
mm,
So I think it will get simpler, but for now, it's a nightmare. I think taxation is way worse than medicine. It will never
mm,
change. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, because taxation is the one way in which whoever is in power can maintain power.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, that's not going to be an easy one to solve.
Yeah. I think, but tax is a really cool way to understand how a digital nation would work. Because if you try to understand societies and especially like digital societies and how they will evolve, what does a digital nation look like a cloud city, where you buy a
Mm,
piece of land and your job is to make turn that sort of land into almost like a digital nation that where you have to build systems from the ground up.
mm,
So a really good experiment of it is like very similar to Minecraft. You imagine a town, and there's sets of people that you can employ. There's people who are creators, that are like people that are mining for coal, people that are farming. I'm going to all categorize them as creators because they're
right,
producing goods and services and
right,
value, right?
right.
So there's a group A called creators. There's group B that are the servicemen, which are the doctors, the waiters, the lawyers, people that sort of take value from people and
Yeah.
then redistribute it, and it goes through circles. And then there's a third group which optimize things, and I'm going to call them the engineers, and they try to come up with unique ways to make things better and better and better. And your job is to employ small portions of all of these people and find out whatever ratio that works for you.
Mm,
Maybe it's like, some from group A, some from group B, some from group C. And your job is to turn it into an economy where you export value and import value. And ultimately, your job is to not make it into a ghost town, because if you stop exporting value, uh, guess what?
yeah.
You're no longer like you'll circulate that same money again and again within those people, but at some
Mm,
point,
it'll just
the
run out.
tax itself will run out.
Mm,
So I think if you do that thought experiment, it's a really cool way to understand
brilliant.
humans, societies, Web3. Yeah.
Yeah. So somebody has asked about taxation versus gas fees.
Right.
So that's an interesting take on it, actually, because
Definitely.
in both places you do have to pay some money for the transactions that you do. So
Right.
what's your take on gas fees?
Yeah, I think gas fees are great. I think there's um, let's understand gas fees first. So
Mm-hmm.
you pay a network fee, and that network fee goes to a person called a miner or a computer called a miner that verifies that transaction is legitimate. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
transaction meets all the requirements that are set in the block,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you need to reward those miners for the way they're verifying it, and the way they verify it is based on the, like we discussed, social consensus or the consensus algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different types of consensus algorithms in Ethereum where we use the term gas. They use something called a proof of stake. They used to use proof of work before, but it's a consensus mechanism where a lot of these miners, they verify these transactions and add these transactions to the block, and for doing that they get paid a gas fee. And that those gas fees fluctuate based on like network congestion, but I think it's like maybe analogous to tax, or maybe more like a reward to people
Mm-hmm.
for doing something like that, because
Mm-hmm.
um,
And so if there are more miners or more
right.
computers that are doing the verification, then the gas fees would reduce.
Well, not exactly. I mean, there's different sets within even miners. There's validators or delegates who
Mm-hmm.
you appoint as the people, because in
Okay.
proof of stake or proof of work, what was happening was in that system, then we started seeing people like group all of their power. So there were
Mm-hmm.
factories with servers, and they ended up having a majority of the rewards,
Right.
which ended up making it a centralized system, which
Again.
was the argument. Yeah, so which was the argument against Bitcoin, is that over X% of the
Yeah.
total network power is in fucking some a factory in China, right, or in Canada, things like that.
Right. Right.
So now what you do is you appoint validators or delegates, that I'm going to appoint this person, and you have a set stake that you give, as we call proof of stake. And that was a mechanism that Ethereum employed, which maybe not like affected lower gas fees, but maybe it helped calculate them more accurately, where power wasn't as like disproportionately distributed. And it, yeah,
I honestly don't see how we can escape human behavior.
yeah, yeah,
However you try to decentralize, the human urge to centralize, to consolidate power, to come together with other people who
yeah,
can help you get power, that cannot be circumvented unless we
yeah,
take human decision making completely out of the picture by algorithmizing everything, in
right.
which case I have to question the point of it all.
Right. I feel like it will be a really nice system to maybe visualize this better, would be like a system, a mix of like AI agents and
Hmm.
humans, where AI agents are sort of alive 24/7, and they hold like some power, and that power is maybe split between the human component, where the
Yeah.
human component maybe have the powers to override it, or a lot of the high value transactions are maybe overridden by humans, but everything else is taken over by an AI agent.
Right.
And then power, I mean, right now it's like almost like cities where we delegate like one person, and then it's like a bottom up structure. But in this way, it would be like a structure like a tree, where it's just branches out of branches and out of branches, and it just
Right.
grows exponentially.
I love a comment that just come up. Jayesh who said, higher the gas fees, more likely your transaction will be verified, which is exactly how government offices work.
Yeah, yeah, unfortunately.
Oh man, it's just like there are certain core human tendencies that really you can't circumvent.
Yeah, I feel like the core problem that Web3 will solve is redistribution of or allocation of capital
Mhm.
to labor from point A to point B. And I feel like if we can reconfigure the relationship between labor and capital,
Mhm.
I think that itself will be revolutionary in the way we work, because work will almost look like Uber, where you'll be not associated with one organization, almost
Right.
like how you're rewarded for gas fees. You can do like really fragmented work for this person, this entity,
Mm.
this community, and all of those like pay you in different formats. And I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of those will be questioned.
Oh, that's very interesting because if you take a random group of 100 people, okay,
Yeah,
about the age of 25, and you ask or about the age of 30, right?
Mhm.
And you ask each one of them,
Mhm.
tell me about yourself.
Right.
Most of them will start off with their job.
Right.
Hi, I'm a computer engineer. Hi, I'm a
Yep.
software. Hi, I'm a doctor. I'm a,
Mhm.
architect. So our identity is so rooted in what you do,
Right.
come professionally.
Mhm.
Uh, if suppose you do work in different companies, different for different people for different things, and you're earning in a fragmented way,
Mhm.
you're also fragmenting identity.
Exactly.
So a lot of people identify themselves as, so I am a product manager at TCS. That
Right.
is my identity.
Mhm.
But if you're doing 10 different things for 10 different companies,
Right.
it's a challenge, and it's a challenge is also an opportunity for you to re-identify yourself. But not everybody
Yeah.
wants that challenge. So it'll be very cool to see this.
I feel like it's so this is what like the principle I stand by is like people are already fragmented. People have already have multiple identities. Like maybe you're not the good example because you sort of took on the initiative to start this podcast and you're still a doctor. But um, if you're giving money to people for things that they already are doing,
Mm.
right? If you're getting paid for, let's say, playing a game or watching a video, things that you would otherwise even do because you enjoy doing that, it doesn't feel
Yeah.
like work to you, but it's still a form of work because now they the company is paying you because they want growth and retention, and
Yeah.
they find value in you. I think that will be interesting where if I like to play music, guess what, there's a community that does that, that's willing to pay for it.
Mm.
I'm into like watching Netflix movies and summarizing them or critiquing them. Guess what, I'm going to be paid for it because
Yep.
there's probably a community that already does that. It's
Yep.
like in school, in college, we used to have clubs, and
Mm.
here also we have clubs. Like in addition to what you're studying, the degree that you're pursuing, you join these clubs because it's fun.
Mm.
And it probably look like those like club fairs where you sign up for clubs that you like, be table tennis
Yeah.
club or anything like that. So
And who
uh,
knows, that can become your job.
that can become your job, or
Mm.
maybe not, but you're probably paid in like 7 different ways, and you have like
Incredible.
fluid identities.
Incredible. And speaking of
Yeah.
fluid identities, one of the things that is possible in a virtual
Mhm.
world is people with gender dysmorphia, right? Or
Right.
dysphoria. They People who identify with bodies other than what they are born with.
Right.
I often think of how, like, the digital space or the virtual
Mhm.
space could could be such an outlet.
Yeah, that's exactly right because this is why I love NFTs because NFTs provide you with a form of expression.
Hmm.
Like in the real world, you can identify with the Mercedes Benz, and that could be a way to flex it. But
Right.
NFT itself is not just a way to like attribute status, but it's a way to identify yourself for a form of expression.
Hmm.
And now that we started to see, okay, people are now trying to identify with .eth domain names or with like profile pictures of monkeys or whatever NFT project they're
Yeah.
attributed to,
Yeah.
as silly as it is, but it's like a form of identity for them where before it was anime characters, now these are like different characters that you know uh, because they identify that group with that group that
Hmm.
launched that project, and that mission
Hmm.
is beautiful.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. The whole idea of being able to explore yourself without really,
Right.
yeah, being afraid of the same consequences, that is liberating.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like people are gonna the 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 time it takes to create a new wallet once you have a MetaMask or any other wallet is like literally like fraction of a second. You create a new one, you just click a button, create new wallet, and it just increasingly creates a new one. So
Correct. And
so
that
that
wallet is something that you can share with somebody. They can put in money there. If
exactly. But
Yeah.
guess what? That wallet is your identity. That
Mm.
phrase, because each wallet is like Siddharth.eth or ABC.eth or whatever it is. But
Mm.
each wallet is now your identity. So you can respawn and start
Oh,
from scratch and build your reputation from the ground up.
wow. Incredible. So
Yeah.
you can just create a new identity just by the press of a
I mean,
button, and
it'll
then
take
that take.
time to like climb the mountain back
Sure.
again, but it's still like a really novel way of like reimagining what digital identities look like.
Yeah. Somebody is asked, how does this affect manual laborers? I think all manual labor would either become uh, mechanical, so machines would take over, or so extremely specialized that they would be very, very well paid. I think
Yeah,
that
I think
it's only one of these two extremes.
I think it will either be automated or
Yeah.
uh, maybe done through software.
Yeah. I mean, so in fact, there would be a time where um, handcrafted saris
Mhm.
would be like this huge luxury item,
Yeah,
probably, because everything is automated, and handcrafting a sari is like a lost art. You can
right.
absolutely imagine that, because it's already happened in so many different art forms.
Yeah, because it's really difficult to create that uniqueness through like an automated way. So
Yeah.
anything like I think like relationships itself, like
Mm.
relationships with two human beings or X number of human beings itself will be scarce because that's the only thing you can't reproduce algorithmically. Like lots of
Oh,
people have tried to reproduce
yeah,
that with bots, but it's really hard to do, right?
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that itself will be like if you have X number of friends or your whatever your group looks like, I think that itself will start to become scarce and your own like
Mm.
tribe is power, is the unit of power.
Oh, wow. So all the things that we take for granted today will become very precious.
Yeah, very precious.
Just having real world physical friends,
Yeah,
and
because
oh
it's
man.
like inherently unique, right? You don't have to impose like a piece of code into it. It's inherently
Mm.
unique because biology itself, nature is decentralized, nature is unique by its
Yeah,
own way. So if
yeah,
you're trying to understand Web3, nature is probably the best thing to like base it
yeah.
off of. Yeah,
Because we are all NFTs, right? We are all non-fungible tokens. You cannot be
exactly.
reprinted.
Yeah, yeah.
Incredible. Blavent that what? Oh, Blaventita. Okay. Sorry, NFT that can be 3D printed.
Actually, they are. So there's a project called Digital X that's already doing this, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So isn't that counterproductive?
Well, they're not 3D printing it, but it's like it's these virtual like you know how Vogue does these like uh, I forget what it's called, fashion shows.
Mm-hmm.
It's these virtual fashion shows where you create like digital fashion, like
Ah, okay.
literally just mock-ups 3D rendered,
Got it.
and it's just walking on the ramp but without the human being. It's
Amazing.
kind of weird, but yeah,
Amazing. Love it. All
yeah.
right. So what we're gonna do is the next 1 week, I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to read up about MetaMask. I'm going to see if I can create a wallet. I mean, I have a wallet in one of the cryptocurrency wallets.
Right.
I have invested I've invested in some of the cryptocurrencies just for fun, just to
Hmm.
see what that's like.
Yeah.
And in case everything goes down, you don't want to be completely lost. So
Yeah.
you explore some stuff, but then I think this is not just about money or finances. I think this just goes down to a much deeper level. We have to understand about Web3 from a perspective of a social change, like a change in the social fabric, because that's kind of reflective of how we as a society move and live together and talk to each other and exchange information and exchange services. So from that perspective, I think Web3 is really important to learn about. So for
Hmm.
the next 1 week, that's what I'm going to do: create a MetaMask wallet, explore what is the online game you said, the Web3 game?
Axie Infinity.
Axie Infinity. Yeah, gaming is a super way of learning something
In
new.
fact, there's stores in Philippines that accept Axie as a payment now. That's how far it's gone, by the way. So
Insane.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
And so, okay, I have a last question for you.
Mhm.
How do you create a coin for a community?
It's very simple. You go to coinwise.co. You uh, and I'm sorry I have to plug this in,
Oh yeah,
um,
it's
but to create a token, again, remember the tokens are resources, so it
mm,
doesn't, when you invest in them or like when you even look at them, it doesn't just unlock economic value, it unlocks experiences, it unlocks maybe time with you, it unlocks many different things. It might unlock even channels in your
mm,
Discord or access to events, things like that. But
mm,
to create a token, you can go to our website, or you can even all you need is a name, a symbol, and understand like how scarce you would like the token to be. So you decide a
okay,
supply of it. So
okay,
the supply in traditional, like if you compare it to equity, it could be like 10 million tokens or 1 million tokens. It's very similar to when you incorporate a company. But the supply could be anything. We worked with like one community. They were building a joke DAO, and it was a community just of comedy and jokes. So they minted like 6.9 million tokens just because it was fun.
Sure.
So my point being, you can really figure out what supply makes sense and how scarce you want it to be. But to create it, those are the three things you need to know.
All right.
But probably the most important thing outside of this is what that token unlocks. And the beautiful thing is, if you can figure out a way, even before it has any value, any dollar value to it, but even if you can figure out a way where that token, owning that token unlocks experiences, or if you view it as resources, what does that unlock? And if you can program things into it as utility for owning those tokens, I think that's what we're trying to figure out.
So I already have a couple of use cases in mind. So we are going to talk about this. Is there a difference between tokens and coins?
No, it's just two different ways of saying it.
So a Bitcoin is also a token, essentially.
Well, it's a token that is governed by sort of the code base or the social proof of work that Bitcoin has created. So yeah, it could be also recognized as a token. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Ethereum is a token. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, coins are just tokens. It's just a piece of code. Yeah.
Right. I mean, without getting too deep into the semantics of it,
right?
A token is actually is an umbrella term. A coin would come under a token. Because
exactly.
Even right now, like if I hold up a 10 rupee coin,
right,
that's still a token, right? It's a token because it stands for a currency which stands for a particular amount of value.
Correct.
So yeah, a token is a larger term.
Larger term, yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. All right, chat. This has been a very interesting conversation. It's given me a few ideas of something fun to do with you guys. So let's see. What do you think? कुछ करना है क्या इस पे? Let me know in the comments.
I feel like let people just come up with ideas and just try to do and just maybe even pitch it to you.
Yeah.
And do something fun with, like, let it marinate. And then once it's like all ready to cook, then we'll figure out like what's the best thing to do.
I think this is something that I think we can let the community decide. Jayesh Anil is in the chat, and I think he does seem to have some experience in this field. I think he's a blockchain developer. So if that's true, Jayesh, then
please reach out to me. We are hiring. If you are a developer or if you're somebody that's interested, please reach out because we are hiring desperately. So yeah.
Oh, amazing. All right. So connect with Jenil. His links are in the description. If you want us to do something fun in this whole space, reach out to me. Let me know. I'm actually very interested in this. I'll be very honest. What is the purpose of doing something like this? It's not really to make money or not really to do,
building your own game
crazy. But yeah, it's so that we get comfortable with this idea. We learn about it.
Right.
We do it, and the best way to learn about anything is through doing it.
Yep.
So yeah. Oh, Vagmi.
Yeah.
Yes, Vagmi.
I had a picture that I wanted to show. I don't have much visual aid this time, but
hold on. Share screen. Yeah. Okay. You can.
Yeah, this is the last thing, and then we can wrap it up. But there was pretty cool. You can also
just a second. I will just adjust the screen a little. Okay. Just give me a second, okay? All right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you guys see it now?
Yeah, I hope that everybody can see it. Are neurotransmitters tokens? Damn, I love that question. Actually, no, they are kind of fungible because you have many copies of the same thing, but in a particular use case, between two specific neurons, yes, they are kind of like tokens. Okay, what is this? What are we looking at?
So there was a distinction between Web 2 and Web 3 that was maybe a bit more contextual to what we're doing today. It's from the perspective of creators, and I found this really like as like just creating a mental model. It was really helpful to me, so I wanted to share like some of these things where before we used to look at like brands as like, or is these like corporations that used to build. You can see Supreme, you can see brands in Nike or any kind of other platform, but now they're all like a community. It has now turned into like groups of people, and they're driven by a mission and like individuals are trying to be brands and brands are trying to be individuals, which was really the
Ooh.
fascinating shifts that happening, which is something I wanted to dive deeper, but maybe we can talk about like the Web3 creator economy
Yeah.
sometime else.
Yeah.
But I feel like this conceptualizes a lot of it in a really interesting, comparable way
Mm.
of how we see like Web2 mechanisms like audience growth, ad formats, content, centralized control, subscriptions, things like that, and what
Yeah.
that looks like in Web3. But we can share this to the rest of the people too.
Incredible. Right. Equity, centralized control, ads and subs commerce, large notion is key. Very cool.
Yeah,
Mm. I
I'll
think
share this with you.
yeah, do share it with me. Every person who is looking at what he or she wants to do has to start thinking about their own career path in the context of Web3 now.
Right.
Because it's no longer enough to say that I want to be an architect.
Right, because that crossover will happen whether you believe it or not. At some point, it may not be as evident right now, but it will.
Right. Interesting. So if you're not careful, then you will miss out on opportunities.
I mean, it's more like it's an opportunity cost. So I feel like right now it's the starting, and I feel like if you are interested, you should dive in, because the opportunity cost of not interacting with it is like financially it's large. There's so much things that you can do remotely. It's I also wrote about it, like you can create generational wealth, which is crazy. So
yeah, I mean there is too much of an it's always in this moments of shift that radical things can happen.
Right.
You know how people make their entire fortunes in war, or when the market crashes, or when something radical happens. So we are living through a moment of shift right now. So
crisis creates change.
Correct. So if you are on the lookout and if you are open-minded, I think there are opportunities for everybody here. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Jenil, thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you.
I absolutely love this conversation. I would like us to do more on this space.
Let's do it.
Around Web3. So maybe we can talk about gaming in Web3. Maybe we can even play a few games on Web3 and see how that works. Yeah.
And one thing I want to do with you is I've been trying to think about this, but you're probably the most expert on this, is neuroscience of cults. Because I feel like the crossover of Web3 and cults is just almost equivalent. And I want to understand this. So I'll probably like reverse the role and pick your brain on it, but I want to learn more about it. So
Brilliant.
We'll do that someday.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like cult mentality and how.
Yeah, I want to understand everything about it.
Sure thing. You're on.
Done.
All right.
Thanks,
sorted. Chat, this was amazing talking to you guys again. We will see you soon. Let me know if you have any DAO ideas in mind, if you have any cult ideas in mind. Tell me, and we will connect soon. Bye everyone. Take care.